I used to have night terrors as a kid. Not the cute kind where you dream your teeth fall out and you wake up sweating. I mean the kind where your brain drags you somewhere it shouldn't even be able to imagine, then leaves you to deal with the aftertaste for days like you swallowed poison and it's still working its way through. I don't remember the stories from them. That's the thing. There weren't stories. There was the place. It was dark, but not like a closet. Not pitch black. More like the opposite of those pristine white void sets in music videos. Like someone filmed emptiness and inverted the color. Everything was shades of charcoal and dead ash. And the space went on forever in every direction like the universe had been hollowed out and you were left inside the shell. I'd be standing there or floating, I don't know, because there wasn't a floor that made sense. There were shapes at the edge of sight, blurred, scuttling, like something trying not to be seen. And every time I tried to focus, they'd decoalesce like the act of looking at them was a hand closing on smoke. The part that stayed with me wasn't even the shapes. It was the drop. That moment where your stomach falls out and you realize gravity is a suggestion. Then the sensation of being shot forward, dragged, yanked like something had hooked a line into the center of my chest and reeled hard. The world, if you can call it that, would smear into gray streaks. Not motion blur like a camera, more like reality itself was being stretched into ribbons around me. I'd snap awake with my face soaked and my throat raw from screaming I didn't remember doing. And for a few awful seconds, the room would breathe. My vision would zoom in and out like I was watching my bedroom through binoculars that couldn't stop refocusing. The lamp on my dresser would balloon huge, then shrink back. The door would feel too far away, then suddenly right in my face. My own hands looked wrong, either too big like oven mitts or too small like I'd been dipped in cold water and shrunk. Sometimes my parents would come in, pissed off, half awake, and I'd watch them stretch toward me like rubber as they crossed the room. I could see the whites of my dad's eyes like I was inches away, even when he was still in the doorway. It made me cry harder, because how do you explain to an adult that their face is doing geometry problems over your bed? I was a nervous kid on a good day. My family life wasn't stable, and I don't mean in the we argued at dinner way. I mean we lived like we were squatting in our own lives. Dad worked for the military. That's what I was told, like that sentence was supposed to cover everything. It didn't. It just made him sound like a ghost with a paycheck. We moved constantly. New town, new base, new school, new kids who already had their groups and their jokes and their history. I'd learn the route from our house to the bus stop and then, bam, another contract, another set of boxes. I started to make a friend and my dad would uproot us like a weed. He was research division, whatever the hell that meant. Anytime I asked what he did, his eyes would go flat like he'd shut a door in his head. Can't talk about it was his favorite line, like he was proud of it. My mom was there. Technically, she did the mom things the way someone does chores they resent. Food on the table, laundry done, a sigh already loaded in her lungs whenever I opened my mouth. She looked at me like I was a receipt she couldn't return. Only child, no siblings to split the blame with, so I learned early how to take up less space, how to stay quiet, how to swallow the weirdness. So when the night terrors happened, when I'd wake up shaking with the room warping around me, I told myself it was just stress, just anxiety, just being a kid whose whole life was built on shifting gravel. That explanation worked until it didn't. The last straw was my 18th birthday. I don't know why I thought it would be different. It's embarrassing to admit now, but I really did this pathetic, hopeful thing where I imagined a normal scene. Cake, card, my dad actually sitting still long enough to look at me, my mom smiling without it looking like it hurt. They hadn't planned anything, obviously. So I did. I booked a table at a cheap pizzeria not far from our place. Nothing fancy, just a sticky booth and greasy slices and a shot at not feeling like I was raising myself. I went after my shift at the bar I'd started working at. I was still in my black shirt, smelling like beer and fryer oil. I sat at that table like an idiot with a menu open, pretending I was just waiting. 5 minutes, 10, 20, 45. The waitress did laps around my booth, fake smiling harder each time like my loneliness was tipping her in secondhand embarrassment. "You want to order?" she asked, and I could hear the pity crawling under her words. "No," I said. "They're coming." They didn't. I paid for a Coke I barely touched and left. The walk home felt like walking through wet cement, my feet heavy, my face hot with that stupid private shame. When I got to the house, my dad's car wasn't in the drive. Of course it wasn't. I stepped inside, and the living room TV was glowing blue in the dark like an aquarium. My mom was passed out on the sofa, one arm hanging off the cushion, wine bottle on the coffee table empty, pill bottle tipped on its side like she'd shaken it and lost count. The TV was playing some late-night talk show, and the laughter track sounded wrong in that room, like it was laughing at me. I stood there for a long time, not dramatic, just frozen, waiting for something to happen. A wake-up, a happy birthday, a human moment. Nothing. 2 weeks later, I stole my dad's whiskey. Not because I liked whiskey. I hated it. It tasted like someone set a tree on fire and bottled the regret. I took it because it was his, because it felt like taking something back. The house was silent, the kind of silence you get in military housing, where it feels like the walls themselves were built to absorb noise. The fridge hum was the loudest thing in the world. Dad was at work. Mom was, I don't know, somewhere between asleep and chemically erased. I left with the bottle under my jacket like a criminal. I walked to the train tracks outside town. There's a bridge that goes over them, metal walkway, chain link sides. I'd seen it 100 times from the road and never thought about it until that night. I climbed up and swung my legs over the edge, sitting on the lip above the rails. Cold metal under my thighs, wind pushing in my shirt like hands. I twisted the cap and drank until my throat burned and my eyes watered. I gagged, then drank again because pain felt like proof of being alive, and I didn't really want proof. I wanted quiet. I didn't have friends, not close ones. I had coworkers who didn't know my last name. I had classmates who couldn't pick me out of a lineup. I had parents who could live in the same house as me and still miss the fact I was disappearing. So yeah, I was waiting for a train. It's weird how calm you can feel when you've made a decision like that. Like your brain stops fighting itself and just settles into stillness. I remember thinking very plainly that at least the moving would stop. No more new schools. No more awkward introductions. No more being a burden. Then the rumble started. Distant at first, then crawling up through the rails, into the bridge, into my bones. The air started to vibrate. I lifted the bottle for one last swallow, because of course I did. One last bitter taste before the end. And something yanked my collar hard enough to bruise. In a split second before I hit the walkway, my first thought was this stupid, bright little flare. Someone cares. Then I landed flat on my back and saw 4 silhouettes leaning over me, laughing. A group of teens I'd seen around town. The kind who always traveled in packs, all elbows and smugness, always picking someone weaker because it made them feel like gods. I caught them snickering at me at the bus stop before, whispering and looking away when I looked back. "Ah, look at him," one of them said, voice thick with mock sympathy. "He's having a moment." I tried to get up. I was drunk enough to be stupid, but not drunk enough to be brave. My ribs, already hurt from the fall, my head ringing. They didn't let me stand. The first kick caught me in the side. I heard myself make this pathetic animal sound. Another kick hit my stomach. I curled up, hands over my head, but it didn't help. They took turns like it was a game. Shoes thudding into me, laughter above it, the chain link rattling with the movement. "Do it," someone said, and I realized, distantly, they wanted me to jump. Not because they cared, because it would be funny, because it would be a story. I don't know when I blacked out. I remember the taste of whiskey and blood mixing in my mouth. I remember the bridge vibrating harder, the train getting closer, and this sick thought that I might die anyway, just not the way I planned. Then nothing. I woke up in a hospital bed with fluorescent lights, trying to bleach my eyes. Sterile smell. Plastic mattress that made your back sweat. My mouth tasted like pennies and cotton. There was an empty chair beside the bed, like someone had meant to sit there and then remembered they didn't give a shit. A doctor came in, flipped through a chart like I was paperwork, and told me I had a mild concussion and 3 broken ribs. He said I was lucky. Lucky. I repeated, because what else do you say? He told me a homeless guy saw what was happening, chased him off, called the police. I pictured some nameless man under a bridge doing more for me than my own parents ever had. That thought should have been comforting. Instead, it made my chest feel hollow. My parents didn't show up when I woke. They didn't call. The only contact was a text from my mom on the 2nd day. When are you being released? I can pick you up. No, are you okay? No, I'm sorry. Just logistics. Like I've been a package delayed in shipping. When she finally came, she didn't look at me much. She signed the paperwork and drove me home in silence. The car smelled like stale perfume and old fast food wrappers. I watched streetlights flick past and wondered if this was what being invisible felt like. We pulled into the drive. I went inside, walked straight to my room, and started packing. Not dramatic, not a big speech. Just clothes, toiletries, my wallet, whatever cash I had. My ribs screamed every time I bent. My mom stood in the doorway watching me like she was watching weather. You can't just, she started. I looked at her, really looked. Her face was tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. Her eyes were the eyes of someone who'd been somewhere else for a long time. Watch me, I said. She didn't argue. She didn't grab my arm. She didn't cry. She just stood there while I walked out of the house with a bag over my shoulder. I didn't look back because if I did, I might have seen relief on her face, and that would have finished me off for good. I slept rough for a few weeks. Couch here, floor there, one night behind the bar in the storage room because my manager pretended not to notice. The bar kept me on full time because I said yes to every shift and didn't complain. I worked with broken ribs because pain was simpler than feelings. Eventually, I found a house share a few streets over from the bar. It was a dump, peeling wallpaper, mold blooming in the corner like a bruise that wouldn't heal. Mismatched furniture like everything had been dragged off curbs. My room barely fit a bed and a wardrobe that smelled like wet wood. The people were a mess too, in a good way. Tina was loud, sharp, always smoking something, the kind of girl who could insult you in a way that made you laugh. John was quieter, all nervous energy and half-finished thoughts, always talking about conspiracy videos like they were documentaries. There was also Marco, who worked nights and barely spoke, but always left food out like he was feeding stray cats. And Elle, who came and went like a storm, either laughing too hard or slamming doors. It should have been chaos. Somehow it felt like home. For the first time in my life, people noticed when I existed. If I didn't come down for food, Tina would knock on my door and yell, "You dead in there?" If I looked too quiet, John would shove a cup of tea at me like he was warding off a curse. It wasn't perfect. We argued. We stepped on each other's nerves. But it was real. My routine became simple. Work till close, bring home leftovers, sit on the battered couch or the floor with whoever was awake, watch whatever show we were all pretending not to care about. Smoke, laugh, complain about bills, talk shit about customers. It wasn't much. It was everything. So of course that's when the dark place came back. It happened when I got sick. A nasty flu that knocked me flat. Fever dreams, sweat-soaked sheets, my bones aching like they wanted out. I missed shifts at the bar, and my manager texted me annoyed little messages like I'd personally chosen to be ill. I spent 2 days half delirious, drifting in and out, and on the 3rd night, I closed my eyes and I was there. That endless charcoal void. The first thing I noticed was that it felt crowded, like the air had weight, like there were bodies in the dark, even if I couldn't see them. Before, as a kid, the shapes had always been moving at the edges. This time they were still. And when I realized that, I felt my stomach twist because stillness means attention. Stillness means you've been noticed. They were everywhere, different sizes, vaguely humanoid, and all of them turned toward me in that way you can feel even without seeing faces. The space between us felt deliberate, like an invisible ring. My whole body tightened. Cold shot down my spine, like someone poured ice water into the back of my skull. I didn't see them launch at me so much as I felt it. the pressure of them surging, that hungry momentum closing in. I threw my arms up like that would help, like I could block whatever the hell they were with my forearms. And then it happened. That familiar propulsion. The violent forward and up pull. Like a hook caught under my ribs and snapped me out of the void. Everything smeared into gray again. I jolted awake in my bed. My sheets were damp. My heart was trying to punch its way out. And the room started doing that breathing trick. The walls bowing, the dresser swelling in my vision, the doorway stretching away then snapping close. I lay there blinking hard, trying to force the world back into shape. The door creaked. I froze. The house was quiet, late night quiet, but I heard that hinge like it was inside my skull. The gap widened and a slice of hallway darkness cut into my room. Tina leaned in, one shoulder against the frame, eyebrows raised like she'd been waiting for me to stop thrashing. "Bad dream," she said. I swallowed. My throat was dry like sandpaper. I nodded because what the hell else do you say? She lifted her hand. A joint pinched between her fingers and were glowing. The sweet, skunky smell filled the room immediately. "Smoke?" she asked. I should have said no. I should have tried to sleep like a normal person. Instead, I sat up and took it because I wanted something, anything, that made the terror feel like a chemical issue instead of a cosmic one. We sat on the back steps in hoodies, cold air on our faces, the night tasting like damp pavement. I told her about the place, about the dark and the shapes, about the zooming vision, the breathing walls. She listened without laughing, which was how I knew it was bad. When I finished, she said, "Okay, that's fucked. Thanks," I muttered. She bumped my shoulder with hers. "No, like medically. That sounds like a thing. A syndrome, disorder, whatever. You get migraines. Sometimes. Any weird shit with your eyes? Like size stuff?" I hesitated, because even saying it out loud felt stupid. When I wake up from them, I admitted stuff looks wrong. Like the room is not the right size. Like I'm too far away or too close. Tina's eyes sharpened. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling with that aggressive purpose she had whenever she wanted an answer. "Hang on." She read for a minute, then turned the screen toward me. The headline made me bark out a humorless laugh. "Alice in Wonderland Syndrome." "Are you kidding me?" I said. "I know," she said, grinning. "Sounds like some edgy Tumblr bullshit. But look." I leaned in and read. Distorted perception of size. Objects appearing larger or smaller. Macropsia, micropsia, often in children, can be triggered by fever. Migraines, stress, clinical words for something that had never felt clinical. The article called it benign, temporary, harmless. Harmless didn't match the way my skin crawled when I remembered those figures standing still in the void, all facing me like dogs watching a plate of meat. Tina snorted. "See? Your brain's just doing little zoom eyes." "Zoom eyes," I repeated. "Yeah, like a fucking kitten." She blew smoke out her nose and laughed. "Look, I'm not saying it's great. I'm saying there's a name for it. Means you're not, like, possessed." I stared at the phone. I scrolled through first-person accounts. Most of them were short, vague, headaches, rooms feeling wrong for a few minutes, a hand looking too big, then normal again. Nobody mentioned shapes in the dark. Nobody talked about being dragged like an anchor line had wrapped around their soul. I tried to tell myself that didn't matter, that I was just adding fear on top, that my childhood brain had colored it and the adult version was just leftover paint. Tina nudged me again. "You should do what I do," she said. "Dream journal." "Why?" "Because it helps. If you write it down, it stops being this floating monster in your head. Plus, it's funny." She smirked. "Sometimes, it doesn't feel funny." "No," she agreed, suddenly blunt. "It doesn't. But write it anyway, while it's fresh, before it slides away." So I bought a cheap notebook the next day, put it by my bed with a pen. It felt childish, like I was playing detective with my own brain. But I did it. For a couple weeks, nothing happened. No theaters, no warping room, just boring little dreams about work and random faces. I'd write them anyway, even when it felt stupid. Tina would sometimes steal my notebook in the morning and read a line out loud in an exaggerated announcer voice. I was in a supermarket and the lemons were screaming. "Dude," she'd say, "poetry." I'd flip her off and laugh because it was easier than thinking. John got involved because John got involved in everything. He saw the notebook one night and immediately went, "Oh shit, are we doing dream stuff?" Because lucid dreaming is real, you know? "Yeah," Tina said, rolling her eyes. And the moon landing was filmed in Marco's bedroom. John ignored her like he always did. He leaned toward me, eyes bright. "If you can get lucid, you can control it. Like, if you ever go back to that place, you can change things. Fight back, or wake yourself up." "I don't want to go back," I said. That was a lie, or half a lie. I didn't want to go back the way I used to, thrown there against my like a bag dumped in an alley. But there was this sick curiosity in me too. A feeling like I'd been carrying a locked box my whole life, and now I'd found a key. I wanted to see it on purpose. To prove to myself it wasn't some supernatural hunting ground. To prove it was just my brain misfiring. So I looked up lucid dreaming techniques. Most of them were tedious, reality checks, timers, meditation. But one method stuck out because it sounded stupidly simple. Lie flat on your back, hands at your sides, and stare at the ceiling. Don't move. Let your body fall asleep while your mind stays awake. That sounded like something you could screw up easily, which appealed to me, like a challenge. I tried it one night when everyone else was out. The house was empty except for the hum of the fridge and the radiator ticking like a distant insect. Rain tapped the window in little impatient clicks. I lay flat on my back, hands by my sides like I was in a coffin. I stared at the cracked plaster above my bed. The stains on the ceiling looked like continents. I traced them with my eyes. Over and over. Counted breaths. In and out. In and out. At first it was boring. My eyelids kept twitching. My legs itched. My brain tried to pull up random thoughts like a slot machine. Embarrassing memories, dumb songs, the smell of whiskey on that bridge. I forced myself back to the ceiling every time. After a while, the distance between me and the plaster started to feel wrong. Not higher exactly, just farther away than it had any right to be. Like the ceiling was receding down a tunnel while my eyes stayed still. The stains softened at the edges. The cracks stretched, then curled back. The dark behind my eyes thickened into something dense, like ink. I blinked, and the bed wasn't under me anymore. There wasn't a dramatic drop. No fighting sensation. It was more like I'd been holding a door and someone quietly took the handle from my hand. 1 second, there was a mattress pressing into my spine. The next, there was nothing. I was in the dark place. At first, I didn't recognize it because I'd never been there awake like this. The darkness had texture now. It wasn't just a void. It was like fog without moisture, drifting in slow sheets. The air felt cold against my teeth when I breathed. Ahead of me was movement. Dozens of those figures, their backs turned, shuffling towards something on the horizon. Not running, not stalking, just moving with purpose like commuters who knew exactly where they were going. For the first time, I could see more than shadows. They were humanoid in the loosest sense. Some tall, some hunched, some thin like wires. Wisps of smoke clung to them like clothes, thinning and thickening with their movement. When the smoke parted, I caught glimpses of bone-white shapes underneath, misshapen like someone tried to carve a person out of wax and got bored halfway through. No faces I could clearly see, just outlines, angles. They hadn't noticed me, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that I wanted to keep it that way. So I followed. Every step felt like walking on something that wasn't quite solid, like pack dash. There was no sound from my feet, no echo. The figures moved in silence too, but I could hear their breathing, wet, uneven exhalations like lungs full of old water. As we walked, the numbers grew, but I never saw any new ones arrive. They'd just be there, like my brain was rendering them late, loading them into view. A figure would be ahead of me, and then suddenly there were 3 more beside it, as if they'd always been walking there and I'd only just noticed. Time did weird shit. It felt like hours and minutes at the same time. I didn't get tired. I didn't sweat. I didn't blink unless I remembered to. Then I noticed something else. Some of the figures were dragging others. Not by the hand like a parent. By the ankle, by the wrist, by the collar of whatever smoke cloak they wore. The ones being dragged were wrapped in a different vapor, gray instead of black. Thicker, heavy like wet wool. And the shapes inside that gray didn't move on their own. My stomach tightened. A rational part of my brain tried to name it. Corpses, sleepers, other dreamers, other me's, anything that made it make sense. The procession kept going, and the thing on the horizon slowly resolved into something long and flat. A wall. It stretched left and right farther than I could see. Not a fence, not stone. Its surface gave off this faint pallid glow, like moonlight on skin. The closer we got, the more my teeth started to ache, like the air was full of pressure. Then I heard it. At first it was just a low, layered moan, like a crowd heard through a thick door. It grew louder with every step. Not a single voice, hundreds, thousands. A chorus of suffering so dense it turned into a physical vibration. My hands clenched. My throat went dry. I slowed without meaning to. When we got close enough for the glow to illuminate detail, I understood why the sound didn't match anything human. The wall was made of flesh. Not fresh, pink flesh. Not gore. More like pale, stretched skin layered on itself, folded and pressed. Faces bulged from it at irregular intervals, like people trapped under a rubber sheet. Mouths opening and closing, cheeks distorting, eyes squeezed shut or wide open in silent agony. The sound wasn't coming from any one face. It was coming from the wall itself, like the whole thing was alive and trying to scream through every pore. The drag figures were brought forward first. The shadow things worked together, hoisting their limp burdens up against the living surface. The wall reacted. Arms erupted out of it. Human arms, too many, some thin, some thick, some with fingers bent wrong. They grabbed. They clawed. They pulled. The gray-wrapped shapes vanished beneath a tide of hands and flesh. Their outlines swallowed as the wall opened like soft clay and closed again. And as each one went in, the moaning shifted like the chorus changed key. I stood there frozen, watching, horrified in that numb way where your brain refuses to fully believe what your eyes are taking in. And then I realized something worse. Some of the faces in the wall looked familiar. Not in a I know that person way. In a I've seen that expression somewhere way. Like old memories I couldn't place. A wide mouth stretched into a soundless plea. A nose crooked the way my dad's was after he got hit in the service. A pair of eyes wide with panic that reminded me of the homeless man I'd imagined on the bridge, even though I'd never actually seen him. It was like the wall was built from almost recognition. Enough to hook me, not enough to explain. I took a step back. That's when the procession stopped. Every single figure turned at once, and I felt their attention hit me like heat. The moaning from the wall cut off mid-vibration, leaving a silence so total it rang in my ears like a high whine. Then I saw it. One of the shadow things lifted its head slightly, and for a fraction of a second the smoke thinned where its face should have been. Something yellow glinted, unblinking. The figures started toward me. Slowly at first, like they were savoring it. Like they weren't in a hurry, because time didn't matter here. The wall began to move too. Faces shifting under the skin, mouths opening wider, the silence filling with a new sound. Whispers. Not one whisper. Many. Overlapping. Scattershot. Coming from the wall, from the figures, from the air. Get out. It was soft at first, like wind through teeth. Then louder. More mouths joining in. More urgency. As the figures drew closer, the whisper rose into a frantic chorus. Get out. My heart hammered, even though I wasn't sure it could. My legs wanted to run. My mind screamed to my body to do it. To bolt. To wake up. To launch. But I'd come here on purpose. I told myself I could control it. So I tried. I willed myself to feel that violent pull. I tried to summon it like a switch. Like a button. Nothing. Panic hit like a punch. I turned and ran. The ground didn't make a sound under my feet, but I heard them behind me. Wet panting, the smoke cloaks hissing against the air. The whispers from the wall followed, morphing into screams that made my scalp prickle. Get out! The space around me began to distort as I ran. The horizon stretched like taffy. My legs felt too short for the distance I needed to cover, like the ground was pulling away under each step. The faster I tried to move, the more the world resisted. And then it hit me with sick clarity. As a kid, I never escaped because I tried. I escaped because I broke, because I stopped fighting, because I'd panic until I couldn't, and then the fear would burn itself out, and the launch would happen like a reflex. Like my brain yanking the plug. I stumbled. Instead of catching myself, I let myself fall. It was like deciding to stop swimming in deep water, like choosing to sink. Before I even hit whatever counted as ground, the figures were on me. Their hands, if you can call them hands, grabbed my arms, my shirt, my face. Smoke-cloaked fingers that felt both cold and burning at the same time. Where they touched, my skin stung like it was being scraped raw. I shut my eyes and forced myself to stop thrashing. I focused on my breathing. In and out. In and out. I pictured the ceiling above my bed. The stains. The cracks. The distance. For a moment, I thought I'd fucked it. Thought I'd waited too long. Thought I'd just get dragged back to the wall and pressed into it like a wet fingerprint. Then, deep inside my chest, I felt the hook catch. The pull came hard and sudden, not from above or below, but from within, like my body finally remembered how to save itself. The figure's grip slipped, smoke tearing away as I shot upward through the void, so fast the darkness turned into streaks. I slammed awake in my bed, gasping like I'd been underwater. For a second, I couldn't move. My limbs felt heavy, like gravity had doubled. My skin prickled where the smoke hands had touched me, and I could still feel their fingers' phantom pressure on my throat. Then my vision snapped back in, and the room started breathing. The walls bowed. The dresser swelled huge, then shrank. The end of my bed seemed miles away, then right at my feet. I blinked hard, trying to force everything into place. That's when I saw the eyes. They were level with the end of the bed, too low for someone standing. Yellow, unblinking, set wide apart, staring at me with this patient, predatory focus, like an animal watching a trap it knows will work eventually. My throat locked. I squeezed my eyes shut so hard it hurt, tears leaking out anyway. When I opened them again, the eyes were gone. But the wallpaper at the far end of the room, where the mold stains spread like a map, split with a sound like wet fabric tearing. A seam opened down the plaster, and something pushed through from behind it. Fingers. Not human fingers. Long, jointed wrong, wrapped in that same black wisp. They clawed at the air, searching for purchase, curling like they could smell me. The tear widened another inch with a sticky, ripping noise. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. My lungs worked, my mouth opened, but my voice stayed stuck somewhere behind my ribs like it didn't want to be heard. Then, as abruptly as it started, it stopped. The seam in the wallpaper snapped shut like it never existed. The room stilled. The breathing walls went solid. My vision settled into normal proportions. The radiator ticked once in the next room, like the house was clearing its throat. I sat there shaking in the quiet, listening for footsteps that weren't there, listening for that wet panting, listening for whispers. Nothing. After a few minutes, my hands started working again. I reached for the notebook by my bed because Tina had been right. If I didn't write it down now, some of it would smear away, and I needed it anchored. I needed proof for myself. I flipped it open to what should have been a blank page. There weren't any. Every page, front to back, was filled with the same 3 words, scrawled over and over in frantic, hungry handwriting that looked like mine and not mine at the same time. We see you. I sat there with the notebook open on my knees, and the worst part wasn't the words. It was the handwriting. Most of it looked like mine on a bad day. Same slant, same pressure, the way I always dug the pen too hard when my hand cramped. But every few lines it changed, like someone else took over mid-sentence. The letters went thinner, sharper, almost careful. Like the page mattered more to them than it did to me. "We see you." Over and over until the paper looked bruised. I flipped to the front. Same thing. Back. Same thing. The inside cover. Same thing, but smaller, cramped into the corners like it had been added when there wasn't room left. My throat tasted like metal. I kept expecting the ink to be wet, but it was dry. Old dry, like it had been there for days. The house creaked. Pipes ticked. A car hissed past outside. Normal sounds lined up like witnesses, pretending nothing happened. I shoved the notebook under my pillow like that would hide it from the air. Then my phone buzzed. "Tina, you awake?" I stared at it, thumb hovering like answering would make it real. "Me, yeah." A second later, footsteps. Her knock was quick, hard, impatient. "Open up," she said. Not playful this time. "Now." I moved too fast, and my ribs, still not fully healed from that bridge beating, even months later, pinched sharp. I unlocked the door. Tina pushed in like she owned the room, eyes scanning corners the way you scan for a roach you swear you saw. "What happened?" she asked. I didn't want to say it. Saying it gives it shape. I pulled the notebook out and tossed it onto the bed. "That." She stared for a second, then picked it up and flipped like she expected it to be a joke. Her face drained. "No," she said flat. "No, no, no. This is..." She licked her lips, the joint she always had behind her ear forgotten. "You wrote this." "I didn't." "Bullshit. That's your handwriting." "Look at it," I snapped. My voice came out too loud. My heart was already sprinting. "Look at the parts where it isn't." She slowed, flipped pages again. I watched her eyes track the lines, the way her brow twitched when she hit the sharper script. "Okay," she said quieter. "Okay, yeah, that's different." I sat on the bed and pressed my palms into my eyes, trying to push my brain back into place. "They were in my room," I said. "Not the dream. The room. I saw." "Don't," she cut in. "Don't give a shape yet. If you tell it like a story, your head will try to make it make sense. Start with what you know." I dropped my hands. My fingers shook. "I went there on purpose," I admitted. Tina's eyes flashed. "You what?" I tried the lucid thing. "I followed them. There's a wall." "A wall," she echoed, like she wanted to laugh but couldn't find the air. "You didn't tell me you were going to do that." I didn't know I could. She came closer, hands balled at her sides. "You don't get to play scientist with your own brain and then act surprised when it bites you." "I'm not acting surprised," I said. "I'm acting terrified." For a second, she looked like she might hug me. Instead, she jabbed a finger at the notebook. "This is not Alice in fucking Wonderland syndrome," she said. "This is something else." "Yeah," I whispered. "I know." She exhaled hard through her nose like she was trying to blow out a fire. "Okay, here's what we're doing. We wake John. We wake Marco if he's home. We don't leave you alone. You're not sleeping alone tonight." "I'm not sleeping," I said. "You will," she said. "Your body will force it. And if that happens, I want someone here to yank you back if you start." She waved her hand, searching for the word. "If you start doing that dead fish thing." I almost laughed. It came out as a broken sound. She woke John. John stumbled in, hair sticking up, rubbing his face like he'd been punched awake. He saw Tina's expression and got serious fast. "What's going on?" he asked. I handed him the notebook. He read one page, then another, then looked up with that weird shine in his eyes that used to annoy me. The shine of someone who loves mysteries more than safety. "Oh shit," he breathed. Okay, this is like..." "Don't," Tina said immediately, like she knew exactly where his brain was going. "No cities." "Not yet." John swallowed and nodded too fast. "Right. Sorry. Right." Marco wasn't home. Elle was out. It was just the three of us, sitting in my tiny room with a notebook on the bed like it was a bomb. John kept glancing at it like it might move. "Can I ask something?" he said finally. "No," Tina said. "Yes," I said at the same time. John pointed at a line where the handwriting changed mid-word. "If you didn't write this, then who did? Like physically, in your room." I stared at the wall. The wallpaper looked normal. Mold in the corner. Same cracks. No Sam. I don't know, I said, but I saw fingers come through the wall. Like it was thin. Tina's jaw clenched. And you're sure you weren't still dreaming? I was awake, I said. I was sitting up. I was breathing. I could feel sweat on my skin. I could smell this room. I swallowed, and I saw eyes at the foot of the bed. John's voice went smaller. Yellow. I snapped my gaze to him. Yeah. He looked down, embarrassed. Just fits, he muttered. Tina threw him a look that could peel paint. Fits what? John hesitated, then said, There's this thing. My mom used to get sleep paralysis. She'd talk about it like it was a demon. She said sometimes she'd see eyes. Yellow eyes. Like watching. That's sleep paralysis, Tina said, almost pleading. That's a known thing. Then why the notebook? I asked. Nobody answered that. Around 4 a.m., the house settled into its deepest quiet, the kind where you can hear the building's bones. I hadn't slept. Ide bareli blinka. But my body started doing that thing where it tries to shut down anyway, like it's tired of asking permission. My vision softened at the edges. The room did a tiny, almost imperceptible lurch like someone tugged on my perspective. No, y whisperat. Tina grabbed my chin, forced my eyes to hers. Stay with me, she said. Name 5 things you can see. My lamp, I said, breath hitching. Your stupid necklace. The stain on the ceiling. John's sock. The notebook. Good, she said. 4 things you can feel. My ribs, I said. My throat. The sheets. Your hand. John hovered by the door like he wanted to run and felt guilty about it. The room tried to stretch again. The ceiling pulled away, distant as a sky. Tina slapped my cheek. Not hard, but enough to sting. Breathe, she ordered. I breathed. I clung to her voice like a rope. It passed barely. The proportions snapped back. The lamp became a lamp again instead of a looming tower. The walls stopped pulsing. I leaned forward and vomited onto the floor. Tina didn't flinch. She held my hair back like she'd done it 1,000 times, like this was normal. Like she refused to let weirdness embarrass her. When I was done gagging, I sat there shaking, staring at the mess like it was proof I was still solid. John spoke first. We need answers, he said. It's not random. It knows you. It's writing to you. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. My voice came out hoarse. My dad, I said. Tina blinked. What about him? He worked research division, I said. He moved us constantly. He wouldn't talk about it. I looked at the notebook, and I've been in that place since I was a kid, before I knew what nightmares were. John's face tightened like he'd just solved something he didn't want to solve. You think it's connected? I don't know, I said, but I don't have anything else. Tina crossed her arms. You haven't talked to them in how long? Years, I said. Then we're talking now, she said. Call your mom. I wanted to refuse. Pride, fear, that old sick instinct to handle it alone because nobody ever helped anyway. But the wallpaper had torn. Fingers had reached. Someone, or something, had written in my notebook. So I called. It rang too many times. When she answered, her voice was already annoyed, like the phone waking her was my fault. Hello. It hit me how long it had been since I heard her say anything to me at all. Mom, I said. My throat tightened around the word. Silence. Then cautious. Are you okay? That almost made me cry, which pissed me off. Where's Dad? I asked. What? She said sharp. Why are you calling about him? Just tell me, I said. Where is he? She hesitated. I heard a clink like a glass set down. He's away. Away where? I don't know, she snapped. He doesn't tell me things. You know that. I closed my eyes. The dark behind them threatened to thicken. Mom, I said carefully, did I ever go to a hospital as a kid? For my night terrors. For the vision stuff. Her breath caught. Tiny sound, like a door in her head opened by accident. I don't want to do this, she said. Do what? I said. Tell the truth. Her voice went small, and that scared me more than her anger. He said it was migraines, she whispered. He said they were studying it. He said it was important. For national security. He said you were helping. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd be sick again. You let him, I said. I didn't have a choice, she snapped, but it sounded like a lie she'd been telling herself for years. He said if I talked, they'd take you away. He said if I interfered, they'd take me too. Tina's hand closed on my shoulder hard. John's eyes were wide, like he could hear every word even though he couldn't. What did he do to me? I asked, voice trembling, rage bubbling up under the fear. My mom swallowed audibly. They called it gating, she said. Perception gating. He said some children could slip, like their brains could tune to a frequency most people couldn't hear. I stared at the notebook until the words blurred. Mom, I said slow, what's the name of the place he worked? She whispered it like it might bite her through the phone. Haraway. I didn't recognize it. That didn't mean anything. My dad's whole life was acronyms and secrets. They could name it Ice Cream Factory and still build nightmares inside. Where? I said. She gave me a location. Not the town we'd lived in. Not even close. A coastal facility. Navy adjacent. Which made my skin go cold, because of course it was coastal. Of course it was near water. My dad loved to bury things where they could sink. Tina mouthed, we're going. I should have said no. I should have sat in my moldy room and called a therapist like a normal person. Instead, I hung up and said, we're going. John didn't hesitate. I'm coming, he said. Tina looked at him like he was stupid. No, you're not. I'm coming. He repeated, voice cracking with stubbornness. If this thing is real, and it's in his house, and it's writing, we don't leave him alone. I hated how much that mattered to me. I hated that 3 words could make me feel seen in a way my parents never did. Tina cursed under her breath. Fine, she said, but you do exactly what I say. No hiroshit. We left before dawn. Tina drove because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. John sat in the back like a kid being taken to the principal. The sky was still black-blue, the streets empty, everything wet from old rain. As the city thinned into highway, I felt the pressure build behind my eyes. Not a headache, more like attention, like something leaning closer the farther we got from home. Tina kept glancing at me. Talk, she said. Keep your brain here. So I talked. About the bridge. About the hospital. About the wall. About the faces pressed into it. About the whispers screaming get out like they were saving me. John listened like he wanted to interrupt with theories and was choking them down. When we hit the coastal stretch, the air changed. Salt. Damp wind. The kind that sticks to your clothes. The horizon went flatter, darker, and the ocean appeared in brief flashes between trees like an eye opening and closing. My stomach turned. Tell me you're not gonna puke, Tina said. I'm fine, elite. The road narrowed. Signs got less friendly. Authorized personnel only. No photography. Chain link fences layered like ribs. Cameras on poles tracking movement. Tina slowed. Okay, she said. We're not getting in through the front gate. John leaned forward. I can, he started. No, Tina said instantly. John held up his phone anyway. There's a service access, he said. Backside. On the water. Old dock. If it's Navy adjacent, they'll have. Tina shot him a look. How do you know that? John flushed. I watch stuff. Of course you do, Tina muttered, but she took the phone. She studied the map, jaw tight. Fine, she said. Back way. We park a mile out and went on foot through scrubby brush and wet grass, the sound of waves somewhere beyond. The fence line eventually showed, tall and topped with coils of wire. Beyond it, low buildings hunched against the sea wind, all concrete and muted lights. My chest tightened like I'd returned to a childhood memory I never wanted. We found the dock John talked about, rotting wood half collapsed, with pylons sunk deep into black water. A service gate was there, padlocked, but the fence beside it was old enough to sag. Tina tested it. We can squeeze through, she said. I looked at the water. It was calm, but it didn't feel calm. It felt like a mouth closed around something. As we slipped through, my vision did a tiny zoom. The dock stretched away too far. The buildings looked too close. Like my brain couldn't decide the scale. Stay, Tina hissed, grabbing my arm. I nodded, but my body wasn't fully mine. My skin prickled like static. We moved between buildings, keeping to shadows, avoiding pools of light. Somewhere, a generator droned. Somewhere else, metal clanged like a door closing. A sign on one building read Haraway Perceptual Research Annex in clean, boring letters. My stomach rolled. Tina saw my face. We get in. We find your dad. We get out, she whispered. No wandering. The annex had a side door with a keypad. Tina looked at John. No, she said before he even spoke. John shrugged helplessly. Then how? I stepped forward without meaning to. The keypad had a tiny camera above it. A glass eye. Yellow my brain supplied. My hand lifted. I didn't decide to do it. I just did. I pressed my palm to the door. For a second, nothing happened. Then the air around my fingers went cold, like touching the inside of a freezer. The metal under my hand felt soft for a heartbeat, like skin under pressure. The lock clicked. The door swung inward. Tina stared at me. What the fuck, she whispered. I don't know, I said, voice thin. Inside it smelled like disinfectant and seawater. Like someone had tried to clean the ocean out of a building and failed. Lights hummed overhead. The hallway was too clean, too empty, the kind of place built to erase footprints. John breathed. This is insane. Shut up, Tina said, but her voice shook. We moved fast. Doors with windows showed labs. Empty chairs, monitors asleep, cables coiled like dead snakes. One room had a big circular apparatus mounted to the floor, metal ring with straps, like a dentist chair designed by someone who hated you. A word flashed in my head, gate. My vision tugged. The corridor lengthened, then snapped back. The walls did that subtle breathing thing, like the building was alive. Don't, Tina whispered, seeing me sway. Don't go weird now. I'm trying, I said. We found an office with a nameplate. Dr. Elias, my last name. My dad. Tina pushed the door open. Inside, the desk was a nest of files and open binders. A computer screen glowed with a paused security feed. There were photos pinned to a board, MRI scans, diagrams, and old pictures. One of them was me at maybe 8 years old, sitting in a chair with wires glued to my scalp, eyes wide, face wet with tears. My knees went loose. Tina caught my elbow. Hey, she said firm. Stay standing. John moved closer, eyes darting over everything like he was trying to swallow a whole. Holy shit, he whispered. On the desk was a folder labeled Subject 13A. Inside were notes. My dad's handwriting. Clinical. Cold. Subject exhibits spontaneous perceptual breach during REM onset. Ejection reflex observed. Rapid dissociation. Sympathetic spike. Maintain breach window for observational contact. Observer entities display recognition of subject. Increased activity following febrile episodes. Wall formation, likely aggregation structure. Vocal warnings, get out, appear to originate from assimilated subjects. I couldn't breathe. The words pinned me to the floor. Assimilated, like swallowed, like absorbed. A sound came from the hall, soft footsteps, then a pause. Someone listening. Tina's head snapped up. She pressed a finger to her lips. The doorknob turned. Tina moved like a knife. She grabbed a heavy stapler off the desk, braced. The door opened. My dad stepped in. He looked older than I remembered. More gray. Same posture, that straight-backed military stiffness like he was still trying to impress a room full of unseen officers. He froze when he saw us, eyes flicking from Tina to John to me. Then his face did something I'd never seen on it before. Fear. Not for me. Not parental fear. The fear of a scientist seeing a sample loose outside containment. You shouldn't be here, he said. I laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. Funny, I said. I spent my whole childhood somewhere I shouldn't be. His eyes tightened. You don't understand. I understand plenty. I snapped, voice breaking. I yanked the folder up and threw it at him. Papers fluttered out like dead birds. Subject 13A? That's me. That's your kid. He didn't flinch at the papers. He flinched at the word kid. Tina stepped forward, stapler visible. "Back up," she said. "Don't do some button push bullshit." John hovered behind her, pale. My dad held his hands out, palms open, like he was calming an animal. "Listen to me," he said. It isn't psychological. It's not a syndrome. It's a breach." I felt my mouth go numb. "A breach into what?" I said. His jaw worked like he was choosing between lies and worse truths. "A layer," he said finally. "A perceptual layer beneath waking reality. Most people can't access it. Your brain could. As a child, you slipped through naturally. We stabilized it. By using me," I said. "We were trying to close it," he snapped, and there it was. Anger, rail anger, like I'd insulted his work. "Do you have any idea what those things are?" "They're in my fucking room," I said. "So you tell me." He looked past me for a second, toward the hallway, like he could hear something I couldn't. His voice dropped. "They watch," he said. "They learn. They don't come through fully. They don't have bodies here, but they can use you as a sight line. A doorway." I swallowed. "And the wall," I said. His face tightened. He didn't answer. I stepped closer until I could smell his aftershave, that same clean, sharp scent from childhood. "What's the wall?" I said again, quieter. His eyes flicked to the photo of me in the chair. "It's what happens when the ejection reflex fails," he said, and his voice went thin like he hated the words. "The subject gets pinned, incorporated. Their awareness spreads. They warn others because they're still human enough to want escape." My stomach churned. I remember the screams, "Get out." "Then why?" I whispered. "Why did you keep doing it?" His face hardened again, like a mask snapping on. "Because if we didn't, they would have found another way," he said. "Because the breach existed before you. You were just visible." I stared at him. "You ruined my life," I said, and it came out flat, not dramatic. Just true. His eyes flashed. "I kept you alive," he hissed. "We kept it contained for years because you could eject, because you could pull yourself out. And now I can't always," I said. His mouth tightened. He looked away for the first time like he couldn't meet it. "They're stronger now," he admitted. "They've had time. They've had contact. You went back on purpose." Tina snapped. "Don't blame him, you bastard." My dad ignored her. He focused on me. "They wrote to you," he said. Not a question. I didn't answer. He didn't need it. He stepped to the desk, tapped the security feed, flicked it to live. A camera view showed the hallway outside the office. Something moved at the far end. Not a person, a ripple, like smoke dragging itself along the floor. John made a strangled sound. "Oh my God." Tina lifted the stapler higher. "No," she breathed. "No, no, no." My dad's voice went hard. "We don't have much time," he said. "They shouldn't be able to manifest here, not like that. If they are, it means," he swallowed. "It means the gate is open wider than it's ever been." My skin prickled. My vision tugged. Try to zoom, trying to distort. The building's lights seemed too bright, too close. He grabbed a key card from a lanyard and shoved it at me. "If you wanted to stop," he said, "you have to go back." My body went cold. "No, you already can," he said. "You've done it. Voluntary entry. That's the difference. You can anchor a closure from the inside." "Anchor," I repeated, and my voice shook. "Like a fucking sacrifice." His eyes didn't soften. "Like a seal," he said. Tina snapped, "Fuck you. He's not going anywhere." My dad looked at her like she was a fly. "If he doesn't," he said, "those things will follow the breach outward. They'll start using anyone they can touch through him." John whispered, "Anyone like us?" My dad's gaze flicked to John, and for the first time he looked genuinely scared. "Yes," he said. The hallway camera flickered. The ripple got closer. It moved wrong, like it didn't understand friction. Then the office lights dimmed for a heartbeat. Not a blackout, a blink. And in that blink, the air filled with whispers. "We see you." Not from the notebook, not from the walls, from everywhere, like the building exhaled it. Tina gripped my arm hard enough to hurt. "Nope," she said. "We're leaving. Right now." A wet tearing sound came from the hallway outside the office, like wallpaper splitting. John whimpered. It's doing The doorknob rattled. My dad backed away from the door, face pale. It can't be that fast, he muttered, like he was arguing with his own data. The door didn't open. The wall beside it did. The paint bubbled. The plaster bowed inward like something pressed from the other side. Then it tore, and a hand pushed through, long fingers wrapped in black wisp, joints bending too far. Tina swung the stapler with a curse and smashed it down on the fingers. The hand recoiled like it felt pain, but the wall didn't close. It widened. Yellow eyes appeared in the tear, low and unblinking, peering through like a child looking under a door. My heart stopped. Behind me, John screamed. Ispoon. He was staring at the office window, the one that looked into the lab across the hall. His face went slack with terror. In the glass, not as a reflection, inside the room beyond, stood one of the figures. Smoke clinging to it, bone-white shape beneath. No face, just the suggestion of one. And it was looking at John. John stumbled back, tripped over a chair, hit the floor hard. Get away from me, he choked. Tina grabbed him by the collar to drag him up, and for a second her eyes met the figure's. Her mouth opened to spit some insult. Then her expression changed. Not fear, recognition, like something reached in her head and flipped through her memories like pages. She jerked her gaze away, breathing hard. Don't look at it, she hissed. Don't. The air snapped. My vision zoomed so hard it felt like my eyeballs stretched. The office shrank around me, then ballooned. Tina's face went huge, pores and eyelashes sharp as knives, then distant. The floor tilted. That hook in the chest, feeling stirred, not upward, forward, toward the door, toward the breach. My dad grabbed my shoulders. Now, he said, teeth clenched. If you want them to stop now. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to run. I wanted to curl into a ball and let the world sort itself out without me. Then I heard it. Under the whispers, under Tina swearing, under John sobbing, another sound. The wall chorus sound. The moaning. Not from the dream place. From the building. Like the annex itself had become thin. Like reality here was already pressed up against flesh. My dad shoved the keycard into my palm. The chamber, he said. Downstairs. We build a control gate. You go in through there, you come out if it works. If it doesn't, he stopped, throat bobbing. If it doesn't, I end up on the wall, I said. He didn't deny it. Tina barked, You're not. I looked at her. Really looked. She was still holding John. Still standing between me and the tear in the wall, like she could fist fight a dimension. Nobody had ever done that for me. I'm not doing it for him, I said to her. I'm doing it because it's already here. She shook her head, furious, eyes bright. You don't know he's telling the truth. I know something is, I said. The tear widened again. Another hand came through. Yellow eyes blinked, slow, calm, like this was patient work. My dad moved first, pushing past Tina, grabbing John's arm, hauling him up. Move, he snapped. All of you. We ran, down sterile stairwells that smelled like salt and bleach. Alarms didn't blare. Nobody came. That was the worst part. Like the building expected this. Like the people who worked here had already evacuated and left the breach to feed. As we descended, the whispers got louder. The walls felt closer. The air thickened. We see you. The words vibrated in my teeth. At the bottom level, my dad slammed the key card into a reader. A heavy door unlocked with a hiss. Inside was the ring apparatus I'd seen earlier, but bigger. Metal circle mounted upright like a doorway. Cables ran into it like veins. There was a chair in front of it with straps. Tina's voice went high. Oh, hell no. My dad didn't argue. He shoved me toward it. Sit, he ordered. I twisted away. You sit, I spat. This is your mess. His face cracked for half a second. Something like shame flickered. Then the mask came back. It doesn't work on me, he said. It never did. It only works on you. The chamber lights flickered. The moaning sound rolled through the air like distant surf. John clutched Tina's sleeve, eyes wild. Please, he whispered to me. Please don't leave us. I stared at him, at Tina, at their fear, at the way they still stood in the room instead of running out into the night and saving themselves. My hand stopped shaking. I sat in the chair. Tina surged forward. "No." I grabbed her wrist. "If it works," I said, forcing the words out steady, "you grab John and you run. You don't wait. You don't come looking. You burn this place out of your life." Her eyes filled. "Shut up," she hissed. "Don't talk like—" "I need you to listen," I said, "because if it doesn't work, I don't want you on that wall." Her breath hitched like she'd been punched. My dad strapped my wrists with practiced hands. Too practiced, like he'd done it 1,000 times. I turned my head to him. "How many?" I asked quietly. He paused. "How many kids did you put through this?" I said. His jaw tightened. "Enough," he said. "That's not a number," I said. His eyes finally met mine. "Cold. Tired. Too many," he said. The ring hummed, a low vibration that made my vision swim. The air in front of the ring thickened, then went thin like a membrane being stretched. I felt the hook in my chest catch, not yanking me upward, pulling me forward. I sucked in one last breath of disinfectant and seawater and said, "Tina." She leaned in, forehead almost touching mine. "If you come back," she whispered, "I'm gonna punch you for scaring me." I tried to smile. It came out crooked. Then the world smeared. The dark place hit me like cold water. Not gradual, not drifting. I was there, slammed into that endless charcoal void, air sharp as needles. The procession was already moving, but now it wasn't ahead of me. It was around me. Shapes everywhere, smoke thick, bodies pressed close like a crowd at a funeral. And they all turned at once. Yellow glints in the folds. "We see you." They breathed without mouths. I didn't run. I forced my feet forward through them, like pushing through tall grass. Their smoke brushed my skin and it burned, but I kept moving. I could hear the wall chorus now, loud, vibrating the void. The wall rose out of the dark like a horizon made of flesh. Closer than it should have been. Like the breach had shortened the distance. Like it was hungry. Faces bulged and shifted. Mouths opened. The sound hit me. Moaning, screaming, begging. "Get out." Not as warning now. As a plea. I stepped closer until the wall's pallid glow lit my hands. The faces moved like they recognized me, like they'd been waiting. And then I saw it. A face pressed near the center, stretched and pale, eyes wide with panic. Tina. Not Tina as she was now. Tina with a bruise on her cheek and tears cutting through grime, mouth open in a silent scream. My stomach lurched. "No," I said. Another face pushed up beside it. "John. Marco. El." People I hadn't even brought here. The wall was showing me the future like it had already happened. Like time in this place wasn't a line, it was a pool, and you could drown in any part of it. The whispering rose around me, the shadow figures tightening like a net. "We see you." My chest burned. The hook in me strained like a tendon about to snap. I remember my dad's words. Anchor. Seal. I didn't have a manual. I had a body and a choice. I pressed my palms against the wall. It was warm. Not gross warm. Human warm. Like touching someone's skin. The wall shuddered. Arms erupted, grabbing for me, trying to pull me in. I clenched my teeth and pushed back. "I'm not joining you," I rasped. "I'm not becoming you." The wall screamed through 1,000 mouths. "Get out." But the shadow figures screamed louder, without sound. "We see you." I dug in. I did the only thing I'd ever been good at, holding on in a place that wanted me gone. And I realized, with a sick clarity, that the ejection reflex wasn't escape. It was rejection, my brain throwing me out before the wall could take me. So I did the opposite. I stopped trying to be thrown. I held myself here on purpose. The hook in my chest pulled. I resisted. My skin burned where the smoke touched. The wall's arms clawed at my wrists. Faces pressed close, eyes pleading. Then, in the pressure, I felt something change. The shadow figures recoiled like they hit a boundary. The whispers faltered. For a heartbeat, the void went still. And in that stillness, I heard a voice that was mine, buried in the chorus, thin and old, like it came from a child crying in the dark. You can close it. The wall's flesh tightened under my hands like a muscle. I pushed, not physically, not with strength, with intention, with the part of me that always launched away, the part that refused to be pinned. I imagined the ring downstairs, the metal circle, the thin membrane. I imagined it snapping shut like a mouth biting down. The void shuddered. The shadow figures hissed and twisted like smoke caught in wind. The whispers turned frantic. "We see you. We see you, we." Then it tore away from my senses like someone yanked a sheet off my face. I woke on the lab floor. I wasn't in the chair anymore. The straps hung loose, torn. My wrists were raw. My lungs burned like I'd been held underwater. Tina was over me, hands on my shoulders, shaking me hard. "Breathe," she snarled, eyes wild, tears on her cheeks. "Breathe, you idiot." I sucked in air and coughed until my ribs screamed. John was pressed against the far wall, staring at the ring. The metal circle was dark now, dead, cables sparking faintly. The moaning sound was gone. The whispers were gone. My dad stood by a console, face gray, hands shaking like he'd aged 10 years in 5 minutes. "It's closed," he whispered, like he didn't believe it. Tina slapped my chest. "Don't you ever," she started. Then her voice broke, and she just grabbed my shirt and hauled me into a rough hug that hurt like hell. I clung back because I didn't trust the world to stay solid if I let go. We didn't stick around. We ran out of Haraway the way you run out of a burning house, not stopping to see if the fire really died. Outside, the ocean wind hit us hard and cold. The sky was brightening. The world looked normal. Cars on roads, birds, salt air. Tina drove like she was fleeing a crime scene. John didn't speak for an hour. I kept touching my wrists, half expecting smoke to seep out of my pores. Back at the house, I collapsed into bed and slept for 12 hours straight. No breathe, no wall, no breathing room. When I woke, the notebook was on my bedside table. I hadn't put it there. I picked it up slowly, like it might bite. The pages were blank. For a second, relief hit me, so hard I laughed. Then I flipped to the last page. 3 words, fresh and wet. The ink bleeding slightly into the paper like it had just been written. "We see you." I stared until my eyes watered. From downstairs, Tina yelled, "You alive?" I swallowed, set the notebook face down, and answered like a normal person. "Yeah," I called back. "I'm up." My hand hovered over the pen anyway, because I knew what would happen if I didn't write first.